If anybody is in a position to know what happened to John Benet Ramsey, the closest we're all going to get,
I agree,
is the cumulative work of the detectives, the prosecutors, and the panel of grand jurors.
That's audio from a very rare interview Fleet White gave to Peter Boyles, a radio show host, in 2014, a year after the grand jury indictments were made public. So we are getting out of the timeline that we've been in, and we are now going beyond the events of 1999. And so let's go to the year 2000, when the Ramseys gave an incredible interview to the Rocky Mountain News titled, "God Will Just Throw an Angel into Your Life."
I got nightmares in my head, I fear thoughts build up until I can't. My mind fills up into a creature, and it haunts me somewhere much deeper. I got nightmares, thoughts build up until...
Hello and welcome to True Crime Rocket Science, the most authentic voice in true crime. So the first part from that article that I want to highlight are Patsy's words saying, her pageant stuff that everybody's seen, those are beautiful, exquisite photographs. And that is what Patsy said, adding, she was a beautiful child. It's true, and I think this is vastly underestimated and clouded by the paedophile trolls. So much of the conversation around the Ramsey case is polluted by the paedophile narrative. Gary Oliver, John Mark Carr, and most disgusting of all, trying to smear Bill McReynolds as some sort of dirty old man simply because the case needs one. But get rid of the smut and you're left with a beautiful child, and what sort of impact might a beautiful child have on her world? Well, exactly, a beautiful child is likely to be noticed by the children around her, including small boys and the friends of her brothers, and of course her friends. And her brother was 3 to 4 years older than John Benet. Going back to Lisa Reichman's article in the Rocky Mountain News, Patsy says, God sees the big picture. Why is it that John Benet's name is known around this world? You can darn well guarantee that the minute I walk through the pearly gates, I'm going to say, why did this happen? Please tell me now. You have to step out of it and look at it from an eternal perspective, or you can't stand it. We're going to talk more about the tone of this particular interview in 2000 when the Ramseys were essentially free and clear. But before we get to that, if you haven't subscribed to the channel, please do. Bear in mind, there are notebooks. You should be taking notes, certainly from this channel. There's just so much information that you probably never heard. You probably want to make a little section, things that I didn't know, for example, and number them. And also have a section, TCRS Insights, to remember. If you're finding this analysis worthwhile, please like, share, leave a comment. Bear in mind, on this channel, we don't really do live streams. A lot of other channels get a lot of their income from there. I don't. So if you would like to make a contribution, you are more than welcome, and thank you. Right, and let's get started. I do think Patsy is sincere when she asks that question, because John Benet didn't have to die. In a weird way, I believe she's already answered the question, certainly in part, by saying she was a beautiful child. I strongly believe if you take away the pageantry, the dressing up, the prettying, and the making up of a little girl, and also the sexualizing of a 6-year-old, you take away the dead girl lying on the floor in the basement. It is interesting that Patsy's first words to God in heaven aren't who killed her, who killed John Benet. She's more interested in why she died. Now, when talking about John Benet's legacy to the Rocky Mountain News reporter, John comes up with a surprising example. He still has a vivid memory of John Benet begging for one last ride on a new Christmas bike before they left for dinner on the last night of her life. Now, again, bear in mind, this is the year 2000. It's 3 years after the incident, and this is what John remembers. In 2000, the Ramseys also disclosed a surprising connection they made, that they met with a mother, or Patsy did, a mother whose child had been killed, hit over the head by another child. That is certainly one of the lingering theories associated with the Ramsey case. Let's go back to this article. Patsy plans to write a note to the mother of the 6-year-old Michigan girl who died at the hands of another 6-year-old when that woman's pain is not so fresh. Kind words and notes of sympathy mean everything to someone who has lost a child, Patsy says. We've gotten to know people since JonBenet who have lost children, John said, and that's been real helpful to us and to them too. Then there's another example. One woman's son died after he was struck in the head by another child as he stepped off the school bus, and the story was in the local news day after day. One day, Patsy decided to go to this woman's house. We sat and cried and we hugged each other, and later when she told me that the day before I showed up, she had been really down, and she prayed for God to send her help. She sent me a grieving mother who would know how I felt, Patsy said. The woman told her. What do you say when someone says that to you, Patsy said. I had received as much comfort from her. So what's missing from this interview? It's the year 2000. Well, there seems to be no interest in finding JonBenet's killer. Nothing about news, leads, evidence, or what should happen with the investigation. Instead, there's comfort, relief, and opprobrium not against the killer but against the police for having the temerity to investigate them. Going back to the article, Burke has been doing well, surrounded by supportive friends and a nurturing school. He doesn't talk much about his sister. And then Burke went on to keep that up for another 16 years. Back to the article, psychiatrists have told the Ramseys that's normal for a 13-year-old. Is it? Is it normal? They go on to say, Burke will deal with this later in life, more than he does now, John said. We've tried to make things as normal as possible for him, Patsy said. I don't want him to think that his childhood died when he was 9 years old with the death of his sister. It wasn't easy, especially early on. The absence of JonBenet left a huge vacuum. The Ramseys say it's hard not to worry every time Burke goes out the door, even in Charlevoix, Michigan, a town small enough for everybody to know everyone else, a place where the family once owned a vacation home. The Ramseys gave Burke a cell phone so he could keep in touch. It gives me peace of mind, Patsy said. He is good about calling. This is perhaps the shakiest statement of all. If JonBenet had been kidnapped, killed, held for ransom, and some foreign faction was still out there, her killer still out there, and their crime frustrated for some reason. Bear in mind, if the person who wrote the ransom note didn't get the ransom, didn't get their payback that they wanted, the ransom still uncollected, well then the words peace of mind and Burke could hardly be uttered in the same sentence. Not only ought the Ramseys not to feel safe, or not to feel safe ever again, but Burke as well. Instead of talking about finding JonBenet's killer or pointing out clues in the ransom note that the public could do with remembering again, what do the Ramseys talk about in 2000? Well, let's go back to the article. The picture that's been painted, just think about those words. The picture that's been painted has been this fairy tale, romance novel characters or something. They don't expect me to be in the grocery store pushing my buggy through the soup cans. These are Patsy's words. She says, I'm just a mom. I'm not who I've been painted to be. It's very interesting that Patsy refers to the picture that's been painted of herself. And I'm not who I've been painted to be. And bear in mind that Patsy herself was a painter. She painted pictures in Charlevoix. She painted pictures when she had cancer and she was staying in John Andrews' room in the Ramsey home. They are also strange words in the context of this idea of an intruder that has been sketched, that has been fleshed out over time. Again, it's strange words given firstly that Patsy is a painter and that pageantry involves so much painting. Painting faces, painting nails, painting in terms of a performance that's meant to create a perception of beauty that's not necessarily real. Going back to the article, they have scaled back their lifestyle partly from necessity. John has learned that his name can be a liability in business. Gone are the Michigan vacation home, the airplane, the boat. Their cars, a Honda and an Audi, are leased. They've been paying massive legal bills, more than $1 million, by depleting savings, tapping retirement plans, and selling assets. There's no mention here, though, of living in a trailer. One learns you don't need all that stuff anyway, John said. It's not really what's important in life. There's no mention whatsoever about the grand jury in this interview. And look, it's all a bit technical, but the important thing is, I guess, it's not about the money.
And so forth. Look, it's all a bit technical, but the important thing is that my company's future is secure.
Of course, following this lull in the legal storm, the Ramseys would launch one after another of lawsuits, even for hundreds of millions of dollars. Look, it's all a bit technical, but the important thing is it's not about the money. I'm not going to take it further than that, but be like Timmy and make sure you get one of your TCRS notebooks, and make sure, like Timmy, you've got a pen, because it's really important that you take notes. Timmy, here you go.